History sometimes hides its greatest secrets in the peaks of mountains. In the rugged mountains of Iran, a castle rises above the clouds. Alamut. It was once home to an organization whose mere existence was enough to keep even the most powerful sultans awake at night. They could appear as ordinary dervishes in the marketplace, humble guards at the palace gates, or weary soldiers in the camp. No one knew their true identities until they completed their missions. The Hashashins, or, as the Europeans whispered in fear, the assassins. These warriors accomplished impossible tasks. Statesmen, viziers, governors, and atabegs began to walk around in armor during the day, because they knew that if a warrior from Alamut set out on a mission, no power could stop him. By the late 11th century, the Middle East was on the brink of great change. The Seljuks were advancing like a flood from the east, the Fatimids were losing power, the Crusaders were preparing to seize the Holy Land. A power no one had anticipated would rise precisely in this chaotic environment. So how did a single castle manage to strike fear into the hearts of the superpowers of the time? How did ordinary young men become the world's most deadly warriors? And perhaps most importantly, who was the man behind this empire of fear? Historians still haven't fully figured him out. Some call him a bloodthirsty killer, while others see him as the savior of an oppressed people. A genius in mathematics and astronomy, a master of strategy, Hasan Sabbah. And his story is hidden much deeper than you might think. Before diving deeper, we'd appreciate it if you could like, share, and comment on the video. If you'd like to support our channel further, you can also check out the super thanks and join options. Enjoy the video. For centuries, the Western world viewed the assassins as a mysterious group of assassins, a sect shrouded in secrets. Poets likened their loyalty to love, while rulers feared their shadows. Stories about them spread by word of mouth during the Crusades and reached their peak with Marco Polo's accounts. According to Marco Polo, who visited Alamut 17 years after its fall, there was a dazzling paradise garden inside the castle. The young assassins, specially selected by the sheik, would fall into a deep sleep after drinking a special potion and wake up in this garden. Beautiful girls dancing around them, rivers of flowing wine, honey, and milk, every kind of pleasure and indulgence. The young men truly believed they had fallen into paradise. So who were these Hashashins in reality? How did this small sect belonging to the Ismaili branch of the Shiite sect become a power that shook even the most powerful state of the time? It all began with the questions in the mind of a young man, just 17 years old, in the city of Ray in Iran. Hasan Sabbah was one of the brightest minds of his time. He was known for his talent in mathematics and astronomy. However, there were other questions occupying his mind: the legitimacy of power, religious leadership, and justice. Hasan Sabbah, the son of a Shiite family, met a Da'i whose job was to invite people to join the Ismailism sect, and this encounter became a turning point in his life. Those who explained the principles and path of this sect to people were called Da'is. Moreover, Ismailism was not only a sect but also promised a cause. The severe illness he suffered during this period deepened Hasan's faith. When he recovered, he was a completely different man. Abdul Malik ibn Attash, the chief Da'i of the Iraq region, learned of Hasan Sabbah's education and talent and advised him to go to the Fatimid Caliph, al-Mustasim, and receive education on the Ismaili sect at Dar al-Hikmah. Hasan Sabbah's journey to the Fatimid palace lasted 3 years. Isfahan, Yazd, Kerman, Balkh, and Egypt. At each stop, he gained new supporters and explained his cause to people. However, he was now much more than an ordinary Da'i. The 18 months he spent in the magnificent Fatimid palace in Cairo gave him not only a religious but also a political vision. He had the opportunity to work in one of the largest libraries of the time. However, he could not stay away from palace intrigues. His disagreement with the Fatimid vizier, Bedr al-Jamali, would force him to leave Egypt. A grand plan had taken shape in his mind. Starting from the Daylem region in the southwest of the Caspian Sea, he traveled from village to village, city to city. He moved about unnoticed wherever he went, gathering loyal supporters. He acted so skillfully that the Seljuk administration remained unaware of his activities for a long time. And Hasan Sabbah finally set his sights on Alamut. Rising in the heart of the Alborz Mountains, Alamut was no ordinary castle. Perched 2,000 meters above sea level, it was like an eagle's nest among the clouds. Its location was so strategic that whoever controlled it could control the entire Daylem region. Thanks to its steep slopes and rugged cliffs, it could be defended even with a small garrison. Hasan Sabbah's plan was perhaps the most brilliant example of his genius. First, he placed his loyal men in the region. Then, he infiltrated his supporters among the castle guards. To gain the trust of the castle commander, Misty, he took a completely different approach. He presented himself as an ordinary religious scholar. Every day, he gave lessons in a different corner of the castle, winning the affection of both the soldiers and the local people. He moved so skillfully that no one could discern his true intentions. In September 1090, the moment he had been planning for years arrived. Most of the castle guards were now loyal to him. He gave Misty some money and asked him to leave the castle. Without spilling a single drop of blood, he had seized one of history's most strategically important castles. Alamut was no longer just a castle, it would become the center of a new state. And Hasan Sabbah would govern this state not through traditional methods, but with an entirely different strategy. Hasan Sabbah knew that he could not succeed against the vast armies of the Seljuks using conventional tactics. So he developed a completely different strategy. He established a small but deadly organization. This order, established in Alamut, inspired both admiration and fear. Strict rules and discipline prevailed. So much so that he had his own son killed for breaking the rules. He sent his wife and 2 daughters away to live and work with poor villagers. However, the real power of Alamut lay in the intelligence network established by Hasan Sabbah. He had eyes and ears in every city. He gathered information about his targets down to the smallest detail. Months, and sometimes even years, of preparation went into each operation before the assassins were deployed. And now Hasan Sabbah was ready to implement the final stage of his plan. His first target would be Nizam al-Mulk, the true ruler of the Seljuk Empire, who had served as vizier for 30 years and waged a systematic campaign against the Ismailis. Nizam al-Mulk, who served as vizier of the great Seljuk Empire for 30 years during the reigns of Sultan Alparslan and his son Malik Shah, was the most influential administrator of the state. Through the Nizami madrasas he established, he waged war against Shurazm and all its subsects, and students from all over the Islamic world, including Andalusia, were educated in these madrasas according to Sunni beliefs. In short, Nizam al-Mulk was the heart of the Seljuk Empire during his tenure. And in the autumn of 1092, the heart of the great Seljuk Empire stopped beating. When Nizam al-Mulk's convoy stopped near Nihavend, an Alamut assassin dressed as a dervish approached the vizier, pretending to have something to tell him, and stabbed him with a poisoned dagger. This assassination was the first link in a chain of events that would shake the empire to its core. The same year, Sultan Malik Shah also fell victim to a suspicious assassination, which initiated the process of the state's disintegration. Following Sultan Malik Shah's death, his 3 sons ascended the throne in succession. Berkiaruq, Muhammad Topper, and Censor fought to avenge their father and Nizam al-Mulk during their reigns. They prioritized eliminating Hasan Sabbah over even the crusaders, who were another threat to the state at the time. Sultan Berkeyaruk launched successive campaigns against Alamut from 1092 to 1105. However, the eagle's nest chosen by Hasan Sabbah was not an easy place to capture. Steep slopes, narrow passes, and rugged cliffs rendered even large armies ineffective. Moreover, Hasan Sabbah did not remain on the defensive. His assassins infiltrated the Seljuk camps, killed commanders, and demoralized the soldiers. Sometimes it was a dagger found in a tent, sometimes a slain commander. They always had an answer to every attack. Muhammad Topper came very close to capturing Alamut, but his death ended the siege. Perhaps the most striking event took place during the reign of Sultan Sensor. Sensor had taken harsh measures against the Ismailis in Khorasan and ordered them to be expelled from the region. One morning, when he woke up in his tent, he found a dagger next to his pillow. Hasan Sabbah's response. Next to the dagger was written, "Wouldn't I have wanted that knife to pierce the Sultan's soft heart?" This incident deeply affected Sultan Sensor. The Sultan, who had previously pursued harsh policies against the Ismailis, changed his approach after this incident. He even sought an agreement with the Ismailis. He granted them certain castles and recognized a form of autonomy in exchange for annual taxes. This demonstrated how effective Hasan Sabbah's strategy was. Sometimes an assassination, sometimes just a warning. In any case, he achieved his goal. No statesman could feel safe anymore. Humus Governor Siniud Devil, Isfahan Judge Abdullah el-Hadib, Mosul Governor Mevdud bin al-Tuntajan, Fatimid Vizier el-Efdal, Mosul Governor Aksungar, Great Seljuk Vizier Kashi, the Fatimid Caliph Emir, the Atabey of Damascus Takelmulk Boru, the Abbasid Caliph Mustarsid and his successor Razid, the King of Jerusalem Conrad, Raymond, son of Bomondo of Antioch, and many other statesmen, sultans, viziers, and kings became targets of the assassins. Each assassination further increased the power of Alamut. During the 35 years he spent in Alamut, Hasan Sabbah personally took care of every detail of the system he had established. According to legend, he only left the castle tower twice during this period. He spent most of his time reading, writing, planning, and training his assassins. He was also extremely strict when it came to discipline. He had his own son executed for drinking wine. He had his other son killed on suspicion of murder. The message was clear. The rules applied to everyone, with no exceptions. In 1124, shortly before his death, he designated his successor, Kia Buzurgamid. Alamut continued to resist even after Hasan Sabbah's death. The system he established persisted for approximately 130 years until the Mongol invasion. That is, until 1256, when Hulagu Khan's armies razed Alamut to the ground. The real Hasan Sabbah was a rather complex figure. On the one hand, he was a thinker who established one of the largest libraries of his time and valued science and education. On the other hand, he was a ruthless leader who instilled fear in his rivals. He was both a mathematical genius and a master of psychological warfare. The word Hashashin has also undergone a journey fraught with misunderstandings throughout history. Europeans derived the word assassin from it. However, the reality was very different. Their rivals called them Hashashiyun, but this was not a derogatory term meaning hashish users, but rather a derogatory term meaning the rabble. The Knights Templar, who came to the Middle East during the Crusades, also established close contact with the Ismailis. These two organizations, which were initially enemies, began to influence each other over time. The organizational structure of Alamut and the training system of the Fadayin deeply influenced the Templars. So much so that when they established their own organization, they drew inspiration from the system. This close relationship would later become one of the reasons for the Templars' downfall. Due to their closeness, the label of having become Muslim was attached to the Templars, and they began to lose power. In reality, however, What had occurred was that the two secret organizations had learned strategic and organizational structures from one another. Hasan Sabbah's evil legacy lives on not only in historical records, but also in today's popular culture. The Assassin's Creed game series, inspired by his story, has become a worldwide phenomenon. Novels have been written and films have been made about him. The secret organization of the Assassins has become an indispensable element of modern conspiracy theories. Today, in the Alborz Mountains of Iran, there stands the ruins of a castle at an altitude of 2,000 meters above sea level. Once a peak so high that even eagles struggled to reach it, it now lies silent. But among its stones lies the story of one of history's most mysterious organizations. Perhaps the real question is, what was this man, who shook an entire empire with a handful of assassins, truly after? Power, justice, or simply the struggle to survive? History is still searching for the answers to these questions. But one thing is certain. The system founded by Hasan Sabbah laid the groundwork for many ideas that have shaped the modern world. This mysterious man, gazing at the world from the eagle's nest, whispers one final truth. Sometimes the greatest power lies not in the sharpness of swords, but in the fear they instill in minds. That's all for this week. We've come to the end of another video. Be sure to share your thoughts on Hasan Sabbah and his assassins in the comments. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to the channel. If you turn on notifications, you'll be notified immediately when the next video is released. Thank you for watching. Take care.